I want to talk to you both about the Epstein files. Of course, the DOJ released 3 million plus Epstein files last week. It appears as though Trump and JD Vance might have split on what happens next. Trump has said that it's time for the country to get on to something else. JD Vance told the Daily Mail that he'd be open to Andrew, that being former Prince Andrew, testifying before Congress. Nick, with the new release of these files, it's not all the files. There are still some being millions actually being hidden away. But with this new release, how is this impacting politics? Do people really care about it, or do they agree with Trump? Do they want to move on?
Yeah, I think the releases thus far have been a major vindication for President Trump. Trump, who basically said, we were going to get into office, we're going to take a look, but concluded that there was really nothing there. I think what we're seeing is that the American voter, they're much more concerned about, the pocketbook issues, the economic issues, that's what's going to drive voters as they go to the polls here in 2026. But I think what's most telling about the lack of, anything in these files is just how quickly the Democrats have moved beyond their Trump Epstein, rhetoric and on to the next, anti-Trump conspiracy du jour. I think this is kind of a nothing burger for the average American, and it is somewhat amusing to me that the three names that are standing out there right now as caught up in the crossfire are Bill and Hillary Clinton, who may be called to testify in Congress, and then of course the former Prince Andrew.
John, what's your assessment, what you're hearing on the ground? Do people want more transparency, a proper investigation for this to continue to drag on? And ultimately, we do need to get to the bottom of it and as much truth as possible. Or do people really want to move on? Are people more concerned with the economy, crime rates? What's your sense on this?
Well, I think most people want to move on. I'm with President Trump on this one. The files do contain evidence of sleazy behavior. They're embarrassing to people like Bill Gates, but I think we should move on to more important issues. This is not a partisan matter. Epstein was a Democrat. His friends were mostly Democrats and academics. He hated Donald Trump, but I don't think there's value in embarrassing public figures, and I think it's time to move on to more substantial issues.
Okay, I want to turn to the growing tensions with Iran. The US and Iran will apparently be holding talks on Friday in Iman, according to CBS News. Now, this, of course, follows an incident earlier this week where we saw the US shoot down an Iranian drone that Caroline Leavitt said was acting aggressively towards a US aircraft carrier. Nick, what is happening here? Are the talks breaking down, or are we going to be getting peace, or are we going to be getting war?
Well, I think, President Trump is rightfully emboldened because he's found this America First ability to project power abroad, and is showing the world that America First doesn't necessarily mean America isolated. And, if I'm the Ayatollah in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, I'm not sleeping well having watched what the United States and Israel were able to accomplish on our nuclear strikes on Iran. And certainly after the masterclass that President Trump put on capturing Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, I think somewhat paradoxically, this is the best and only opportunity that the Iranian regime is going to have to make a deal with President Trump. This isn't the Biden or the Obama administration where, they're going to be able to walk all over us and cross red lines. I think Trump's going to come to the table, or his representatives are going to come to the table in Oman, but the Iranian regime is going to have to be willing to make a deal that's not just to address their nuclear program, but also their wanton support of terrorism and their oppression of the Iranian people. And I just don't know if there's a deal to be had there for the despotic leaders of Iran.
Yeah, I don't know either. John, what's your assessment of where things are at the moment and where this is going?
Well, in my opinion, there is no point in negotiating with the Mullahs. The Iranian people need regime change, and regime change is very much in the interest of the United States. The question is how to bring it about. Unpopular tyrants can stay in power longer than one would think possible. You look at Cuba, for example. It's very hard to overthrow a government if you aren't willing to use your own soldiers, which Trump clearly isn't. So I don't know whether there's any combination of airstrikes and economic pressure that will cause the Mullahs government to fall. I hope so, but on paper, it should have fallen a long time ago. And so we'll have to see how this plays out.